Hi, this is Dave and welcome to the Table, and today we're going to be taking a look at Versailles from NSKN Games, designed by Andre Novak. And in this game, 2 to 5 players are going to be taking on the role of master builders, competing for the favor of King Louis XV by gathering up different resources to construct this grand palace in an attempt to gain his favor and become the king's personal architect. Let's take a look at this game, how it's played, and I'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, here we have the game board of Versailles set up, and it's set up for 3 players. And as you can see, I have workers already placed on the game board, and that is going to be dictated by the rules in the rule book. And depending upon the number of players, the workers are going to be in different locations and different quantities. Also, we have King Louis XV placed up in the upper corner there, as he's already starting on his way into the palace. Now, on the game board, there's a number of locations that we can visit to do a number of different things. So let's take a look at these here and what they do. So, for example, here we have the marble quarry. And these little symbols here are going to determine if we have a certain number of workers on that location. When we do activate that place, what is the result? So if we have 1 worker there, we'll be able to take 1 marble, 2 workers, 2 marble, and 3, and so forth. We move over to the next spot over here, which is the gold mine, and you see here with 1 worker with an X, if we only have 1 worker there, we're not going to be able to get anything there, because mining gold is a difficult task, and we're going to have at least 2 workers there. The next location here we have is the Architects Guild, and this space here is where we are going to be able to gather up these tiles that we're going to be eventually placing in the center of the game board here, and there's going to be a cost associated with taking the tiles for some of them. But for here, in order to take either of these 2 tiles, we're going to have at least 1 worker on this particular space. So if we have 1 worker there, we can take 1 tile. If we have 2 workers on the space, we can either take this one and this one, or we can use it to take a tile that requires 2 workers. For example, these 2 spaces here. And then finally, there's one up here that if we really want this tile, we have to have at least 2 workers there, and we also have to pay 1 gold. Other things that we can do here is we can use our workers, essentially, to activate them to remove tiles here and bring out new ones, or we can use one to refresh one of our double move tokens, which I'll get to shortly. The next space that we have over here is the workshop, and what we will be able to do here when we activate that is we have to have a certain number of workers here and a certain number of resources that we'll pay in order to build these various decorations here. So we have a coat of arms, we have like a marble statue, we have a fountain, we have like a gold filigree looking thing, we have a throne, and then this looks like a cross-shaped thing, but it looks almost like extra walls or extra adornment that goes on the palace itself. So this is where we'll be able to build them, and then when we do, we'll be able to grab the respective decoration tiles. Down here we have the lumber yard, where just like the marble quarry, we'll be able to gather up wooden resources over here. We also have over here we have the Alchemists Guild, and when we bring workers over here, we will be able to study and gather up technology, and we will be able to advance on these tracks here in order to gain additional bonuses and benefits, and I will get into that shortly as well. We have the King's Favor over here in this spot, and when we pass by here, we can recruit additional workers, or we can refresh our double move tokens. And finally, the last space on the game board here that's of real importance is the construction yard, and this is where we are going to be building the palace. And as you can see right here, we just have some resources laying over here. We've got some dirt, looks like there's some wood laying here, and there are 4 completed spaces already on the game board. and we will be placing tiles in here in a puzzle-like way in order to build this palace. And then we have this path here, this road, where the king, Louis XV, is going to be advancing along, and he kind of acts as a counter for the game. So those are the different spaces and what they do. Let's talk about the gameplay. Okay, gameplay for Versailles is very simple. What's going to happen is a player is going to activate one of their workers, and they're going to move it to the next available space on the road here in a clockwise motion. There are little road signs in the artwork that dictate where the flow of traffic is going to go. There are also roads that lead into the center here, into the construction yard. So we have a road here from the marble quarry, from the gold mine, over here from the Architects Guild, the workshop. Those lead into the construction yard, and we have two roads that lead out of the construction yard. One leads us into the lumber mill, and the other one leads us over to the spot where we're going to getting the king's favor. The beginning of the game, the king is on the first space on this path moving in towards the palace here. The play order here that I have, the red player is first, then the green player is second, and then the black player is third. And I want to show you a round of how the actions take place, and then I will explain different things along the way. So, for example, here, the red player on his first turn, maybe we want to acquire some resources. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my workers, and I'm going to move him over on this particular space here, moving just to the next space, and then I will place an activation token here, and that will allow me to activate this tile, and it will also give me additional information that I'm going to explain in a second. First of all, I have two workers here that are my own color. That's all I'm concerned about, is the color of my own workers. And with two workers here, I'm going to gather up 2 marble resources, so I'm going to place them in front of me here. With the activation token there, it's a reminder of the last place that I had placed a worker, and it also in the rules says that I cannot move another worker there and activate it on my next turn. So I have to have at least in every other space to go there. Now I have something else that I could do on my turn, and that was I could use one of these double move tokens here. We start off with 2 of them in the game, and if I had chosen to do this, I could flip this over to show it as exhausted, and I have 2 options. I could either move 2 workers from one location to the next, so I could have done this, moved 2 workers up there, I would have had 3 to get 3 marble resources, or what I could have done was I could have moved my worker from the king's favor and skip 1 space and go on to the next one. So I could have gotten a worker over to where the gold was. So those are what I can do with those double move tokens. And we have 2 of them that we have to use during the game, but there are ways to be able to refresh them and reuse them. So that was the red player's turn. The next player, the green player, one of the actions that they're going to do is they're going to move one of their workers from down here in this lumber mill, and they're going to move over to the Alchemist's Guild. And so then I will place my token here to show that that's what I've done. Now with the Alchemist's Guild, what I can do is discover technologies that will give me extra benefits during the game. So let's take a look here on this track. This top one here is going to be essentially a production technology. And what's going to happen is when I'm gathering up resources, I will be able to gain additional ones depending upon what level I'm at. The first space here, I'm assuming that maybe I want to go for wood. I have my 1 worker here. For 1 wood, I would be able to advance my technology here, and so I would slide it up to this space here. So now, whenever I gather up wood, I will gain an additional wood. On subsequent turns, if I go in here, I'll be able to advance to marble and then eventually up to gold. And what happens is, as I advance on these technologies, anything behind it I also have. So right now, I would do that. The next type of technology that's underneath here is the resource location tiles. And what this means here is if I advance along here, that, for example, here, if I had my technology here on this wood, as long as I have a worker in the lumber yard, and somebody else moves a worker into there and activates it, it's as if it was on my turn, activates, and I will get the resources as well. And so if I had my technology here, if I had workers there, I would get wood and I would get an extra one because of my technology there. So as you can see, this can become very, very powerful. And as we advance here to marble and then the gold mine as well. Now keep in mind, as you're advancing technologies, you also have to have workers placed in those particular locations when somebody else shows up on their turn for it to be worth anything. Otherwise, if you now have a worker there, you can't use that technology. And then finally, the space down at the bottom here is what they call like different specialists. In these locations, for example, here we have the workshop, the Architects Guild, and then finally the construction yard. And what's going to happen is that if I have a technology marker there, that as long as I have a worker in that particular location, for example, the workshop, if another player moves there, then I would be able to take the same action as well. So it kind of allows you to be able to do actions when it's not your turn, if you spend a lot of time advancing your technologies. Now, one thing that I want to note here is that we are moving in a clockwise direction, and so stopping off at the Alchemist's Guild does have a cost associated with it, because on the next turn, if I choose to move this worker here up to the next location here to the King's Favor, a couple things are going to happen. First of all, this is the space that we would be able to gain additional workers, and each one we have ones in reserve. The first one is costs you 2 workers in that location to get it. The second one, you have to have 3 there. You can also refresh your used double move tokens, but every time that you either stop on this space or move past it, the king moves 1 space closer on this path coming into town. So there is and once the king reaches here, that could trigger the end of the game. So you have this this risk of ending the game sooner by moving around the board, and especially when you're upgrading your technologies. Now, we've talked about most of the spaces and what they do here. On the next player's turn, for example, the black player, they're going to move from the Architects Guild down to the workshop. So we'll go down here, and we'll place our token here. And what happens down here is that for each worker, we will be able to perform an action in the workshop as long as we have the resources. So if we look over here, for example, we have 2 workers here, and so we can either perform 2 actions that require 1 worker. For example, here, it requires 1 worker. If we have 2 wood, we'll be able to build a coat of arms, or if we have 2 marble, we can build a marble statue. Or these other ones here, if we have 2 workers and we have the appropriate resources, we can build these things here, a fountain or a gold filigree or a throne. So if we do that, if we have the resources that we've gathered up and we take this action, we'll gather up these different decoration tokens. For example, here's a fountain, and we'll put it in front of us. It's worth 3 points. Now, those if you don't use them at the end of the game, you're going to get 3 victory points. However, some tiles that we require to build are going to have a resource cost. For example, here, this one has an associated cost of having this gold filigree. So, we've gone around, everybody has taken their turn. The next round begins. We start with the red player, and so, for example, here we may choose to move this worker over to the Architects Guild. So once we move to the Architects Guild, we have 2 players here that we can choose to do different things with. Number 1, if we don't like the tiles that are over on the side here, we can use our workers to remove tiles. If we just use one of our guys, we can remove 1 tile. If we use both of our guys, we could remove 3 tiles from this board here, and then new ones will come out. So, for example, maybe I didn't like this tile down in this space here. And so I could use one of my workers to remove this tile. It would get removed and form a discard pile, and then everything else slides down, and a new tile comes up at the top here. Now, to acquire these tiles also requires a worker action, and depending upon the number of workers we have there, or the ones we have available, we'll be able to take tiles. So, for example, this one here, or this one here, require 1 worker to take. These would require 2 workers in that space to take a tile, and finally the last one, you have 2 workers and you'd have to spend a gold. You can also use a worker to refresh one of your double move tokens. So you have different things that you can do here at the Architects Guild. So we have one remaining worker. So I'm going to grab this tile here. So what I'm going to do is take this tile, place it in front of me. It is worth 1 victory point while it's sitting in front of me. But now, just because I have this tile doesn't mean that I can place it. I have to have resources in order to construct this. So now once I've built that, these all slide down here and a new one comes in its place. Okay, let's take a look at the building action for this game. So we've gone through, we've acquired some tiles, and players have gone around, and we have a number of things that are in front of us, and I want to talk about the building action and going into the construction yard. And so again, just like any other space on the board, we're going to move our workers in, and we will place our activation tokens, but there's a specific way that these tiles can be laid in the game. So let's assume on the player's turn here that we have a worker, and it's the black player's turn. He's going to move into the construction yard. We'll place the activation token here. And he happens to have this tile in front of him. Now on this tile, it's going to tell you how many workers it takes to have in the construction yard in order to build it, and the resources required here. So this one is going to cost 1 marble and 2 wood to build this. So if we pay those resources, we will then we will score 6 victory points, so we'll move up our marker along the victory point track that goes around the game board. We flip this over to show that it's decorated, and we're going to be able to place it on the game board. Now there's really slight grid lines here that make up this board, but the way that this is going to be able to be placed is it has to be placed next to a tile that's already been there. So we have starting ones here, and along the border of this is there's a specific color that you can see. Let me zoom in here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you'll see this grayish color here, and in the middle there is a shift, and you start seeing that it's green, and then it continues green around the bottom, and then it comes back up to green and white over on the other side. So when we go to place tiles, though, we can place them and we can turn them however. So this tile here, I could place it here, or I could place it here, or here initially. I cannot place on a diagonal. So we'll just say, for example, that we're going to place this right here, and we've scored the victory points. On another player's turn, let's assume that we've gone through the game here. We've already had a couple of workers here, and we have this green worker is going to move in here for his turn. So we have 3 workers there in the center, and we want to do some building here. We have different options. We could, if we had the number of resources, we have 3 workers there, we could build 3 different tiles that require 1 worker each, assuming that we have the resources. We could build this one here and this one here for 2 that require you'll have a total of 3 workers, provided we have all these different resources. Or we have one here that we need to have 3 workers there. So let's talk about this one, for example. This one requires 3 workers there. We have 2 gold, and it also is going to require one of those decoration tiles that maybe we have built previously. So we look at our building requirements, and we'll place this on the game board here. Again, we can go against something that's already been established, so we'll place this here. And then once we've placed that, we'll score the victory points. But we also take our decoration token and we lay it on top of it here. So that one that we had in front of us for 3 victory points doesn't go back into the pool of available things to build. It now becomes part of this palace. And so that's one of the mechanics of this game. Now as we're going along here, we're going to be trying to place tiles in here to build this palace, and they have to match up in terms of architecture and features. So I could place this one right here, and it matches up with this split on the green and the gray here. Now, the initial placement of tiles is pretty easy, but things can get kind of funky here. Maybe this one gets placed here, and now we start having an extra building that's out here. We'll flip this over so you can see what it looks like, and we start having these really fancy looking features here. And so now it looks like, oh, maybe we're going to have a little courtyard here. And as time goes on, as we're placing tiles here in the game, it's going to become more and more challenging. For example, here I would not be able to place this here because we don't have matching walls. So it starts to become something where, well, maybe I'll place this right here. And so we start building in spaces, and it becomes more and more difficult as time goes on. Now, our goal is to build this palace, and there's different ways that this game is going to end. First, if we manage to build this palace all the way full, then at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points is going to be the winner. There will be some end of game scoring where every one of your decoration tokens is going to give you additional victory points. You're going to also be able to acquire points for specific resources that you have. And then every palace tile that you've acquired over here that's not built in front of you is worth 1 victory point. Another way that the end of the game is going to be triggered is that every time that we pass by the king's favor spot, either we stop on it or we pass over it, this king is going to be moving his way up this path. If he manages to get to this last space, that's going to trigger the end of the game. And then finally, when we were using our actions to cycle through tiles over here at the Architects Guild, if we go to form a new stack to draw from, and there are 7 or less tiles, that is going to trigger the end of the game. So overall, we're going to be working to build this palace for King Louis XV. We're going to be gathering up resources and managing them. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points is the winner. So here we have Versailles, and the first thing I want to do is talk about the designer and the artist for this game, because I'm trying to make a more conscious effort to bring attention to those people that are working to create these games that we enjoy. So we have Andriy Novak, has created Versailles. He is with NSKN Games, and he did Praetor and Progress Evolution of Technology. And then the artwork is done by Odysseus Shtamaglu and Agnieszka Kopera, and I hope that I said their names properly. If I did not, I apologize for that. But they have done a tremendous job of creating a beautiful game board that we play on. It looks like and feels like a painting that we're playing on. You've got these really neat little paths that you're moving workers along. There's little road signs. There's little nuances, little details that are on the game board that really make it stand out. I mean, if you get closer to where the palace is being built, there's little people along the side of the road, and it looks like they've got a sign up for the king. You've got lots of details on these building tiles. Look at this. Here we go with the, this is an area rug in the palace, and it just looks tremendously awesome. Lots of detail here. And then we've got the designer who has taken mechanics and have married them together and fused them into to what we see in Versailles. We have a worker placement aspect where we are taking workers, tasking them to do things. But we also have it coupled with this rondel as we're moving workers around, and as we are acquiring workers in certain spaces, we have more that we can do there. So it's kind of so we have those two things together, coupled with this tile laying mechanic of building this puzzle in the middle of the game board, and we only have a certain amount of time to do it because the king is coming to town to inspect the work that's going on. And so we have those different things that comprise this framework for Versailles. Now, the gameplay is very, very simple. The rules here, this is like essentially the components and a little bit of setup. Here's how we play the game with a little bit more setup, the actions, a lot of pictures, and then on the back, here is an explanation of the different technologies. That's it. Very, very simple game to play. I mean, on your turn, all you're going to do is be moving a worker from one space to another and carrying out that particular action when it's activated. So, very simple gameplay, but there's more to the game. There's strategy to it, and there's a little bit of depth there as well. And the overall experience of playing Versailles is going to be dependent upon two different things. Number one, the style of players, and number two, the number of players. And I'm going to talk about that right now. In the style of playing, of how Versailles plays, and this is my opinion, that when you play Versailles, this is not meant to be played as an aggressive game. There is more of this sense of mild cooperation that comes across in the game, because you're working to, as builders, everybody is trying to work to build this palace for the king, and he's coming to inspect your work. But we are each competing to gain the favor of His Majesty. And so, if everybody is just trying to be cutthroat, nothing's ever going to get done. And then if you were to translate it thematically here, or put it in your mind, if the king were to show up and nothing was getting done, all of his workers would be executed. And so there is a sense of having to work together in this game that I feel comes across in here. And so there's got to be a little bit of cooperation, especially when building the tiles down. You don't want to completely shut out everything here, because it's going to become then a not enjoyable and difficult game to play. If you play this game aggressively and you're one to hoard everything, if you specifically go after gathering up all of the decoration tiles, or you're hoarding these building tiles and never building them, it's going to become the game is going to stall out, because players are going to have to exhaust their actions in going through the building tiles, cycling through, in order to get something that they can to work with. And it may come to a point where nothing's going to be able to get built if nobody takes the action to build something. So that could provide for a negative game experience, and especially with that hoarding aspect. So if you play that aggressively, where you have to have everything, that's really the and if you're going to be more cutthroat and really placing a complex arrangement of tiles, that you may end up putting yourself in a bind where you may not be able to place something, and then you're going to end up wasting your turns, and that's not going to be very fun either. So this style of gameplay here, I find this to be a non-aggressive game to play. And then depending upon the number of players here also provides for a different game feel. If you play this game with 2 players, which I've played this one a few times now with 2 players, and I find this to be very, very enjoyable, and it's a nice, nicely paced game. There's enough going on where you can work together yet still be in competition with one another, and it just presents more of a relaxing gameplay experience. And the Alchemists Guild and developing technologies does not have as much of an effect on the overall gameplay experience as it does with more players. So with more players, and you're in this Alchemist Guild, you're going to see that if you invest in those technologies, that things are going to behave differently. If you have workers scattered around in strategic places, you could have a lot of things that are going to be going on when it's not your turn, and you can acquire a lot of resources, you can take a lot of additional actions, but that comes at a cost. You're going to have to make sure you have those workers stationed there, and it's going to limit what you're going to want to do on your turn. And then also, every time that you're developing your technologies, once you move on from that space, you move on to the only direction you can go is to the king's favor spot, which is going to make the king move closer to the castle. So you have this risk there. But you are going to see the technology aspect coming in more with 4 or 5 players. So those are the two main things that contribute to how this game plays. And you have I feel that this game plays good if you're working in a semi-cooperative nature. Now, looking at this game from a family perspective, why should a family spend the money and buy this game Versailles? And sometimes I don't think that maybe I'm making my point super clear on here. But, with this having such a simple gameplay of just moving a person and taking an action, that it's very easy to teach to somebody who may not be really into the gaming hobby, or you're new to the hobby. And this game is something that can be taught very well, and it's also the depth of the game and the difficulty level is such that you can play this game
with a child who's aged 10 and up, and they should be able to understand and grasp the concepts of the game and be able to play it successfully. But there is enough challenge and depth in the game that it's not too simplistic. The game does offer some really good benefits in playing this game, and the first is there's going to be a lot of planning because of the way that the workers are spaced on the board, and you have this little token here, this activation token, which I think is brilliant. You have to vary your actions and what you're going to have to do, and so you're going to have to be thinking about what you're going to be doing 2 or 3 steps ahead. You're going to be planning in your head, okay, I want to do this on my turn, this on my turn, this on my turn. And that's going to work very well for acquiring and gathering up your resources. The only spot where it's going to become challenging more so is getting the tiles that you need from the Architects Guild, and to a lesser degree being able to build specific decorations. But you do have this aspect of being able to have to plan, and you also have some resource management that's going to come in this game. And then also the different choices that you have here, there is some risk management, and you have to weigh that risk versus reward. Okay, well, I'm going to risk investing in a lot of technology here, you know, and hoping for the reward of getting it paying off, but the cost is, you know, am I gonna accelerate the end of the gameplay too quickly? So there's different aspects that are going to lend into this game that's going to give it a little bit more weight, where somebody who's already established in the hobby can enjoy this game as well. But you have these elements of decision making, forward planning, resource management. They're all great teaching tools in playing this game, and it's something that a family can enjoy together. So I find this game plays awesome with 2 players. It's very, very relaxing. Couples can enjoy this together. Also plays well with 4 or 5 players. 4 players, I find this to be the other sweet spot. So 2 and 4 players, 3 and 5 players, it plays okay. But the 4-player experience, then you have enough competition amongst the spaces that it's going to really bring about this race to be efficient in what you're doing. And so that's where I best see Versailles. Very, very enjoyable game. I like this one a lot. It's something that can be played in under an hour, and it's just going to give you a satisfying gameplay experience. I feel, especially with this fusion of different types of mechanics that have that come about in Versailles. So, all right, that's it for now. And if you'd like to have more information about the game Versailles, I'll have information in the video description below. You can click that to check that out. If you have enjoyed this video, please take the time to browse my complete listing of other game reviews and see the other work that I've done. And if you'd be so kind as to click the subscribe button below, you can subscribe and keep up to date on all of the work that I have been doing as well. In the video description and on the screen, I'll also have a link to my blog. You can go and check that out as well. I have additional information and content that I have provided there. All right, so that's Versailles, and that's it for now. And I will see you again next time as we bring another game out and see how it makes it to the table. Bye-bye.